Welcome to ACC Nation. I'm Jim Quist. That is Will Ojanen. And if you're watching on YouTube, oh my gosh, what has happened?
Extreme close-up!
Welcome to all you folks who are listening to us on ACC Nation Radio. We have updated some things there in case you would like to take us along with you 24/7. We are available. Just go to our website, and we'll also lead you to some other platforms in which you can subscribe to us, and that's being updated on a daily basis. So, and obviously, we're also on the podcast, so you can subscribe to the podcast as well. Got a lot of stuff going on. Let's talk football, Will.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we do. One of the things that it drives me absolutely bonkers. We talk about this every year, is about the polls, the rankings. And this, it just gets more insane every year. One of the things that absolutely this year has been just a head scratcher is how teams that are really high up and then all of a sudden they lose a game. Now, you can't be in the top 15 or top 10 in the nation and then suddenly drop down to 35 or 40 overnight. That's insane. All right. That's what the AP's been doing. The coaches poll, a little more adjustment time wise. And I tend to put a little more stock in the coaches. They understand how the game is working, what's involved, and how a team can be off a little bit. And that you shouldn't say, okay, just because this team lost this week, let's just throw them out with the baby in the bathwater. No, you can't do that. So this week, AP has Georgia at number 1, Ohio State at number 2, Alabama at number 3, Clemson at number 4. Meanwhile, the coaches have Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and then Clemson at number 5. So, that's a pretty wide disparity when you come down to that top 5 and how it all lays out. When it comes down to ACC teams, on the AP, Wake Forest is 14. At number 15, it's NC State. 18 is Syracuse. Then, and this is ACC plus 1. Receiving votes category at number 26 is North Carolina. Number 30, I always want to say North Dakota. I don't know why I want to say that. It's Notre Dame. Number 34, Florida State. And then over on the coaches poll, at number 13, NC State, 14, Wake Forest, 18, Syracuse, 25, North Carolina. Receiving votes, it's not North Dakota. This is deja vu all over again, because I don't know how many episodes ago I did the same thing. Receiving votes, number 34, Notre Dame, 43, Florida State, and at number 44 is Pitt. Now, a lot of disparity there in how these teams are all ranked. We're midway through the season. We should know something definitively by now. But as usually the case in the ACC, everything is topsy-turvy, and we do not.
Therefore, you think you know, but give it 7 days and you don't.
That's right. We'll see what happens. Hey, after this weekend, and again, talking about we think we knew everything. Oh, boy. All right, let's get into all these games. Got a short amount of time to do it in. Louisville over UVA, and I know this is the one that you wanted to get out of the way as soon as possible because the pain, and we're not talking about Fantasy Island. 34 UVA 17. Louisville came up with a big win there, and Virginia, boy, lots of problems.
Yeah, looking forward to them not losing this week because they're on the bye. But yeah, well, we don't know. I mean, there is a chance they could lose on the bye week. You never know. But story of this game, Virginia got out ahead 10-0. We're driving to I can't remember how deep they were. They were at least inside the Louisville 15. And Brennan Armstrong fumbles, and then just everything imploded after that. Louisville outscored them 34-7 over the next 3 quarters. They had Brock Doman in his first career start looking like it looked like Tyler Van Dyke the first half of his start against Virginia last season. He just looked like he was a deer in the headlights, basically, but just looked a lot more comfortable and confident in the second half. Finished for 275 yards and a touchdown. Louisville sacked Brennan Armstrong 6 times, and anyone who's watched Virginia football knows they are not exactly the best at pass blocking. Even despite that, though, Armstrong still had his best game of the season, threw for 313 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks, which were kind of, uncharacteristic. They ran for a whopping 6 yards in this game, which, the coaches talked about, in the beginning of the season, before the season, talking about the commitment to running the football, and they could not get it done here. They're still plagued by drops by the receivers. Dontavian Wicks is still having drops. Keaton Thompson had a rare drop. They're also getting no help from the play calling. There was a play in the fourth quarter where Brendan Armstrong went back to pass through it, and there was literally a cluster bleep in the vicinity of the pass. At least 3 Virginia players and as many, if not more, Louisville defenders in the area. And pass fell incomplete, but Dontavian Wicks got hurt on the play. I don't know of his status going forward. I don't remember if he returned in the game, but a lot of issues with this Virginia team as they head into their bye week. Louisville, it was still Louisville, impressive win. There were reports out that Scott Satterfield would have been fired if they would have lost this game, but the people closest to the program say that was not the case, and they don't know where that info come from. But still, a big win for Louisville, who have a lot more to play for this season than Virginia does right now.
Big rumor out today following the firing of Matt Rule at Carolina. Matt Rule is one of the potential candidates to take over at Louisville, also at Georgia Tech. Those are 2 of the schools that were mentioned, and I just thought, boy, that's absolutely insane.
See, for those of you watching on YouTube, this is I have my arms out, a couple feet apart. That's how long the line is for people who want Matt Rule, their college. But remember, this guy's going to be paid, 40 something $million over the next few years. Maybe he doesn't want to coach next year.
So, sit out for a while.
Yeah. I'd take the next few years off and sit on 40 something $million.
That's right. Why not? Hey, next game up, Pitt over Virginia Tech, 45-29. Pitt got its running game going. Tech is just not there yet. We all know that. Mm-hmm. It's the same. Basically, Virginia Tech's going through the same thing that UVA is going through. They just don't have all the pieces in place. That was pretty evident.
Yeah, the difference is I feel like when you look at this year itself, Virginia was more ready made to compete this year because of what they brought back. Realistically, Virginia Tech is much more in a rebuilding phase than the Hoos are, and it's going to take 2 to 3 years for this program to really start getting going again. But they were very competitive in this game. Early in the fourth quarter, they blocked a punt, returned it for a touchdown, and were a 2-point conversion away from tying it. They ultimately failed to get it, but then Pitt scored 2 touchdowns to make it the final score. I mean, the story of this game is Israel Abanikanda, 36 carries, 320 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Yeah, talk about the game of your life, man. That is just amazing. And when the opposing defense isn't stopping him, you might as well just keep feeding him as much as he can. So I sure don't blame him for running him, but obviously, running pad getting that much work, you always have to worry about, the injury issue. So I'm kind of curious what his load is going to be like coming up in their next game.
Yeah. North Carolina over Miami. This is a closer game than I think. Not that I would have thought. I thought it was going to be close. But 27-24 with the Tar Heels coming out on top in the final there. Miami is just not finding what it needs to make things happen. And UNC's offense is just dynamite enough to keep things interesting. The defense, not quite there yet.
Yeah. Little story of this game, it kind of in the losing effort. Tyler Van Dyke, 42 of 57, 496 yards. That's just unbelievable. I mean, Mario Cristobal's the type of person that loves to run the ball and play defense. They didn't do either in this game. 23 carries, 41 yards on the ground, just under 2 yards a carry. Didn't The longest run of the game was 9 yards. So that's not Mario Cristobal. But like I say, if you're doing really well at one thing, you might as well keep doing it. And that's why Tyler Van Dyke was throwing the ball 57 times. Will Mallory at 115 yards. Someone in the preseason when we were talking to Manny Vara, I thought it was somebody that could have a kind of a breakout season. It looks like he is in the middle of that. A huge game here. As far as Carolina goes, obviously Drake May did his thing, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 53 yards on the ground. I'm fully convinced that at this point that I'm going to be shocked if anybody in North Carolina wins the Coastal at this point. Even with the scare like this on the road, I just don't see anybody else right now that that is on their level. Maybe if they have a bad game, against Pitt or something like that. I think they still have to play Pitt, but when you look at, that might be the only issue. And they play them October 29th. So that's a few weeks off, but that'll probably be the game to decide the Coastal now. And I'm still thinking it's Carolina's division to lose.
Saw what you did there with Mario Cristobal. Pretty good play. All right. Next game up, Georgia Tech with a huge win. And everybody's sitting there going, a huge win. What are you talking about? Huge win. A win is huge considering the fact of where this team was headed and how it has turned around like on a dime. 23-20 over Duke in overtime.
Yeah. It's a huge win because they actually have a winning streak for once. Yeah. They have won two games in a row.
Thank you, Count.
Especially since they're conference wins too. That's huge too. They're technically tied in the win column with UNC in the Coastal for wins, but they've also played one more conference game in them, and they've lost it, which obviously was the Clemson game on opening night. Georgia Tech outgained Duke in this game 412 to 278. Jeff Sims 227 yards passing, ran for 95 yards, did throw a TD. I say this game went to overtime. Georgia Tech hit a field goal. Duke missed a 52-yarder that would have sent it to the second overtime. They really did struggle on offense. Riley Leonard just threw for just 136 yards in the game. They did have some decent success on the ground, though. But again, impressive win. Brent Key's now 2-0 as interim head coach. And, geez, at this rate, he's going to make it real hard for the administration to shy away from him. I mean, there's still a long ways to go with this season still, but still impressive that he's been able to do this, given – what he's had. And obviously Jeff Collins is boy, you can tell this team was not very well coached. I mean, I think I was looking at it the other day. Brinke's coached 2 conference games and is already 1 win short of any season Jeff Collins has had in terms of conference wins.
Wow. Wake Forest over Army 45-10. I wasn't expecting quite the run up and score there because Army is usually a pretty good competitor and keeps things tight. But this is a good demonstration of the offensive prowess of Wake Forest. It also explains to anybody and everybody who has a doubter as to why Wake Forest is in the top 15 of both polls that we had read out earlier.
And they should be. I mean, you look at their resume, at their biggest blemish is a 7-point loss to Clemson, who at this point you could argue as a playoff team. Oh yeah, they deserve to be ranked pretty highly. Remember this game a year ago was 70-56. So it shows you just what how impressive this one was. I mean, Army's a bit down this year. but Wake Forest is still there. Sam Hartman had a really good game, threw for 246 and a touchdown. Just Ellison ran for 96 and a touchdown. They ran for 221 as a team, averaging over 5 yards per carry. They basically just did what they needed to do and get the win and move on, and look pretty dominant doing it.
Notre Dame over BYU, unranked over ranked, 28-20, the final score there. It looks like Notre Dame is finally starting to find the steam they have been lacking for, well, the last couple of games since the beginning of the season. It looked a lot better. They played a lot better ball. Now, there may be some argument that BYU was overranked. Nonetheless, they were ranked. Notre Dame is not. And Notre Dame certainly delivered a nice win there.
Some people think time of possession can be a bit overrated as a stat, but I don't think that's necessarily the case here when you look at Notre Dame had possession for 40 minutes and 55 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. They basically had it for over 2/3 of the game. And put up 496 yards of offense, pretty balanced, 262 in the air and 3 touchdowns from Drew Pine, who looks a lot more comfortable in this offense now. They ran for 234, averaging 5 yards per carry. Max Mayer is a beast. That program continues to churn out tight ends at a regular rate, and he'll be the next one. 11 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like you said, they're starting to creep back into some ballots, but they still have some pretty tough games on their schedule coming up ahead. I mean, like you say, they've rebounded nicely after kind of obviously the rough start, Tyler Buckner getting hurt and missing, the rest of the season, which is a disappointment. But then you look at, the last couple of weeks they're starting, and then they came off the bye and look pretty good here. They have Stanford, which is they should win UNLV, but they have stretch at Syracuse, Clemson, and then close the year against USC, who is a sneaky dark horse playoff team. So the schedule will get a little more difficult here for Notre Dame in the coming weeks.
Yeah, that we'll know for sure just how much they've improved by what you've just indicated. The back half of the schedule this year for most of the ACC +1 teams is challenging, which makes for some great ball as everyone has progressed and gotten better and become more comfortable, as you talk about quarterback there at Notre Dame, getting comfortable with the system. As you get more comfortable and the system starts to work for you, tougher games are on the horizon as well. Clemson over Boston College, 31-3. I thought this was going to be a little more interesting as it started out. But then Clemson very quickly took the reins of this horse and rode it.
Yeah, it feels like the red bandana game is always a big deal. It is a big deal, but I feel like BC always plays a lot better in those games. And they kind of did the start, but it just after the second half it was just all Clemson. Yeah, it really, the story is Boston College's offense is just bad, and it's not even like the skill position guy's fault. It's not Phil Jerkovic's fault or Zay Flowers' fault. It's just the offensive line has been so bad this year. In this game, 30 carries, 34 yards on the ground. That's 1.1 yards per carry. Boston College is the worst rushing team in the nation in terms of yards per game. And there's only one team that has a lower yards per carry average than them, and that's Colorado State. And I only bring that up because their former coach was Steve Addazio. This team is, they've allowed the most sacks in the ACC, giving up 22 in 6 games. I don't believe that's the worst in the nation. It's ranked 126th out of 131 teams. So only 4 teams have allowed more sacks. One of those being the aforementioned Colorado State Rams. But Clemson doing what they needed to do. Only 364 yards offense, but they didn't need to do much in this game because their defense played so well. Clemson still, like you said, they're number 4 in one poll, number 5 in another, and they're just continuing to churn and look really good. DJU had 220 and 3 touchdowns. through the air and 69 on the ground. Just, they look really good, and going to be hard pressed to find another loss for them in the schedule. There's a pretty decent chance they could run the table now.
DJ was the key. If he had a season like last, it would have been a horrible pothole for them to come out of. But he has melded right in, and he's corrected the issues, and the offense is starting to really pick up some steam now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and
takes
yeah,
it.
you can really tell that the offense has gotten a lot better. And who knows, what the reason is? Is it's because it's basically all the same staff. I mean, or the same people. A lot of them in the staff, but you see DJ's playing a lot better, and maybe it is him dropping the 20 pounds he lost in the off season, that he plays a little more lighter on his feet. Maybe that makes a big difference, especially when he runs. But I still don't think he's the greatest runner out there. But you're seeing the improvement in the passing game for sure.
I will tell you this: that as big as he is, I still wouldn't want to be a defender trying to
Mhm.
bring him down,
Oh
because
no.
he definitely knows how to run over people. NC State and FSU. This was a really interesting game, and it was fun to watch from a couple of different um, angles. Let me get this out of the way really quickly. Devin Leary suffered a shoulder injury in that game. Dave Doran says no surgery. It's rehab, and there is no timetable for his return. It may be on a day-to-day basis. Initially, there was some discussion about it could be up to 6 weeks, and I was like, "Wow, that sounded really bad." But I held off on that, responding to it, because at anytime you get an initial assessment, you typically can say, okay, let's get the pros in here to take a look at it, and really closely evaluate what's going on. That's what happened. And Jack Chambers will be starting for NC State this weekend. NC State 19, FSU 17, Florida State certainly rebounding and doing much better this season. That's a team that has gotten better with each game. I I almost hesitate to say this, but the pack has almost gotten worse with each game. I don't get why that team's not clicking the way that we all assumed it was going to. They've got everything on paper.
Yeah, I just feel like the problem is the offensive execution. I mean, even in this game, Devin Leary wasn't playing well before he got hurt. He was 10 of 21 passing. They're running the ball super well, but they did have to rely on Jack Chambers, as you mentioned. He came in after Leary got hurt, but he only attempted one pass, but ran the ball 7 times for 39 yards. He's not, I think he ran more of an option type offense at his previous stop. I think it was Charleston Southern
Correct.
before coming into NC State. So I wonder if Leary does have to miss this game, what kind of offense they're going to have to, what kind of offense they're going to have to implement, because they ran the ball a lot in this game, 46 times as a team. But obviously, the Wolfpack used multiple backs, so it's not like you're asking one person to carry the bulk. But that does make it for an interesting matchup coming up against Syracuse, because Syracuse is the second best team in the league against the run. So that's an interesting thing to look at going in for this scene. Now, as for the Noles, obviously a couple of tough losses in a row, but you're still seeing a team that should make a bowl this year.
Oh,
So I think that was the expectation for this team, is to just at least get to a bowl this year. And I know they've been banged up too a little bit the last couple of weeks, but I still think that this team is going to get there. They just need a couple more wins. There's winnable games on this schedule. I can still see them making a bowl, and I think that's a pretty successful season for the Noles.
pretty short schedule this coming weekend. Right now, the 12:30 game, which is on a regional sports network or ESPN3, depending on where you are. Miami is a 7.5 point favorite over Virginia Tech. Um, they're going to Blacksburg. The Canes are. I am interested in seeing how they recover from this loss and whether or not they can pick it up and find themselves again against Virginia Tech, because Tech is still, and especially at home, sneaky surprise good.
hmm Yeah, it's weird that, you got two of the, like, I don't know, two of the best programs of the last 2 decades, 25 years. I don't know about that, but teams that have, that when you think of college football, you think of these two programs, especially in their Big East days. Here we are in the year 2022, and they've been relegated to the regional sports network telecast, which is fine because I like hearing James Bates as their analyst. He's one of my favorite analysts because dude just makes me laugh at least once a broadcast. But I think the thing here is, Miami's a touchdown favorite. I'm curious. This is a Virginia Tech team that really needs to get off the schneid. This has been a tough stretch for them. They're in the middle of a tough stretch. I think we mentioned the Pitt game, Miami and North Carolina, and obviously lost to North Carolina, and an NC State coming up after that. So it's going to be a tough stretch here. They're in the middle of a tough stretch, and they they if they get them, they need them if they're going to get to a bowl. Because I cannot talk for some reason, they need to win this game, but. I like the Hurricanes in this one. I just feel like they're just a better offensive team, and I just don't see Virginia Tech being able to score with them, to be honest with you.
First game up on the ACC network at 3:30 is NC State visiting Syracuse. Home field advantage, 4-point favorite, the Orange, and part of that, of course, is Leary. Because I just don't see him playing in this game.
Yeah.
But and as you mentioned, the run defense.
Yeah, second best run defense in the league, as I mentioned. They in NC State, if Leary is not playing, you would expect them to run the ball a lot. As I mentioned, Chambers is only threw one pass, and he played at least half the game, if not more. In that win over FSU, and I think if Leary plays in this game, I would take the Wolfpack. But if Chambers is a starter, then I'd lean Syracuse. I just feel like the NC State offense will kind of get bogged down without Leary.
Next game up on ABC at 7:30, it's Clemson and FSU, and Clemson is only a 3.5-point favorite here, which it's a little surprising, but it is at Florida State, and it would be very similar if obviously the points would be higher if they were playing at Clemson. So this is going to be an interesting game, a fun game to watch, because these were the two powerhouses at one time that we could all depend on vying for the ACC championship.
Yeah, night game in Tallahassee. This should be a lot of fun. The atmosphere in Tallahassee is going to be phenomenal. There's going to be a lot of tomahawk chop chants coming from there, just because it's going to be a huge game. Clemson coming down. I lean the Tigers. Obviously, I've said I just don't know if they're going to lose again the rest of the season. They should be favored pretty much the way out. But I think when you look at the rest of Clemson's schedule, I think this is where they can get tripped up, because because of the situation. Night game, against Florida State. I feel like this should be a really good game. But I'll take the Tigers.
This can also end up being one of those definitive win games that teams like Clemson, who are sitting in the top 5 or top 4, need to have. They sometimes will just put the pedal to the metal and run up a big score in order to send a message, because we're getting close to that time where the committee's starting to look at everybody and say, okay, where are we going to rank everybody? And so you send those
3-4 weeks out from those rankings.
Yep, not too far. So these are the types of games you start sending the message, hey, look at us. We'll see how that all works out. 3.5-point favorite, Clemson over FSU, 7:30 on ABC. The other 7:30 game is on NBC and Peacock if you're into the streaming side of things. Stanford is taking on Notre Dame in South Bend. The Irish are 16.5-point favorites.
Wow, that's a pretty big number, but I think that's more of a reflection of Stanford than it is Notre Dame. And Stanford is just
Yeah.
they've just really fallen off over the last few years, and some are starting to wonder if a coaching change is in the works there, at least in the next year or two. But just based on who I think will win, I would definitely take Notre Dame in this game. But if you were asking me about the point spread, I certainly wouldn't touch that one. I'm just not fully convinced they could cover 2 touchdowns, but definitely they're definitely going to win.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and say that 16.5 seems pretty steep considering track record so far. And our final game of the evening is on the ACC network. It is at 8:00. It's North Carolina taking on Duke. Tar Heels are 6.5-point favorite in this game.
Yeah, Duke had a rough outing in their last game, but I feel like they will at least kind of hang with North Carolina, which is far more than I would expect at the beginning of the year. I think Carolina should win this game. I think their offense is going to be too much for them. I think what if Duke is going to win this game, Riley Leonard needs to really step up and play a huge game here, and he's capable of it, but I just don't think it's going to be big and good enough. I'm going to take the Tar Heels in this one.
Yeah, I will go that route as well. Hey, subscribe to ACC Nation on your favorite podcast and streaming radio platform, and be sure to like and subscribe to ACC Nation on YouTube. We really appreciate you being there, and more stuff coming up. And hey, by the way, just as a reminder for everyone, basketball stuff is really going to start to unfold here in the next couple of weeks. Because we're really close to the basketball season starting, and that always staggers me that we're halfway through the football season, and here we go. Basketball is getting ready to kick it big time here in 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, we're not far off.
Yep.
I think just under a month, I think, is the first game.
Got a lot of people to talk to about basketball and what our anticipation of what's coming up for the season. And here's something for everyone to chew on just a little bit. North Carolina is still a preseason at this point favorite at number 1 in college basketball. So it's going to be an exciting season in the ACC and college basketball as a whole. And until next time, cheers.
Score.